Hi, friends. Welcome to Encouraged and Equipped. On this podcast, we introduce you to the women of Christ Chapel Bible Church.
We love being encouraged to live out our faith in Jesus by hearing the stories of women in our church community. We are so glad that you're here. Hey, welcome back to Encouraged and Equipped. I'm Camille, and today I get to sit here with Brooke and listen to a conversation that she's going to have with Emily Hill. And listener, I'm so excited that you get to hear from Emily because she is such a well-spoken person about the Lord and His work in her life. And today, you're going to get to hear her talk and share vulnerably about one of the more difficult transitions that she's walked through in her life as she stepped into being a full-time stay-at-home mom. And it was such a sweet time to get to hear her perspective on it and to hear her genuinely sharing what was difficult in those moments and how the Lord really met her in that time. And so I'm not going to take too much of the story away from you right now because I know you're going to look forward to hearing it. But Brooke, I think it was such a great time between the two of you to be able to talk through what that looked like.
Yeah, I think and I say this on the episode, I'm pretty sure, but I just loved Emily's willingness to be so open and honest and I think share with a lot of humility. I think my heart in having this conversation with her is I want our church family, especially amongst our women, to be a place where, we can raise our hand and say, hey, this is hard, or hey, I need help, or hey, I have a question. And also to raise our hand and be like, God is faithful. Like He saw me through this. Mm-hmm. And so I was really grateful for how Emily, I think, shined light on that. And I hope that as you hear it, you feel like it's a very permission-giving episode in a lot of ways. And something she talks a lot about in our conversation is just different instances in her life and how God has taught her that ultimately your identity comes from Jesus and it's about obedience to Jesus. And especially I think as women, maybe even I can say that, we're tempted to look for validation in so many places and it can kind of wreak havoc in our day-to-day. But Emily talked about, and I thought articulated so well, this idea of, man, if I can just focus on being obedient to Jesus, He will bring me the validation I need. He already has given me my identity. And so I was super encouraged and even comforted by that. And I hope you are too, as you listen to this episode. And one thing I'll say as you get ready to listen is something that Emily and I were both really sensitive to and wanted to be really upfront with is she shares really practically about her day-to-day. And we just want you to hear us say, this is what obedience and stewardship has looked like in Emily's life and in Emily's context. We want you to hear the heart behind it, not necessarily as this is the one how-to episode. And so, like I said, I really do hope and pray that my conversation with Emily brings a lot of things to mind for you of, man, what does my obedience to Jesus look like in my day-to-day? Where am I seeking validation? And what am I called to steward? So without further ado, here's my conversation with Emily. Welcome back to another episode of Encouraged and Equipped. I'm Brooke, and I'm sitting here with, I would say, my new friend, Emily Hill. Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation today. A while back, I actually cold texted you. Got your number, cold texted you, and I was like, hey, I've heard good things. We should hang out and chat. And you very sweetly were like, totally. And we met for coffee, and we started having this conversation. I basically asked you, man, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me as a Christ Chapel woman what you think you would want to hear Encourage and Equip talk about? And you just right out of the gate, so vulnerably and honestly, and I think with a ton of humility shared, I think I really struggled with so many things when my life transitioned from being a young married person to a young mom. And the Lord's taught you so much through not just the transition of becoming a mom, but now you have 3 kiddos. I think your oldest is 8. Mm-hmm. 8, yeah, see? I remember. Yeah. And I loved some of the things that you shared with me about what God has done in this season of your life as a young family. And so that's what we're going to chat about today and just what God's taught you through all of that and what He's still teaching you. And so without further ado, I just kind of wanted to set you up a little bit, but yeah, tell me a little bit about what you've been learning.
Yeah. So Drew and I have been married for 15 years. And for the first, I think it was 8 years, I worked full time as a professional. I was a dental hygienist. And then we made the decision for me to transition to full-time stay-at-home mom when Rhodes, our oldest, was born, which was 8 years ago now. And I still feel like this is something that the Lord is working on in me. And it's just that struggle for finding our identity in something. And a lot of times it's not in Him.
Yeah.
And when I was working full-time, I in hindsight, I think I was putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of value on who I was as a professional.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully recognize it until I came out of that and entered full-time mommyhood with this brand new baby and learning all of those things and suddenly kind of wondering, who am I? What is this? What happened?
Yeah.
And just kind of wrestling through that a little bit as we continued to have kids and grow our family. And it's just something that I still, again, I feel like the Lord in a lot of different ways now kind of just nudges and reminds me where to find that identity. And that's ultimately in Him, of course. But,
yeah. Well, right out of the gate, I feel like you've already said a couple things that have made my wheels turn and I have found really encouraging. One, I think as a young single woman, I am not married, have not had kids, but I think that's a season that so many people I know and love and do life with really closely are entering or have been in for a little while. And I've even, in my role as a, women's staffer here at this church, I've even met with women who are in that season and are having a hard time with that transition. And I think if a young mom hears this, if any woman hears this, but I think especially someone who's maybe new to that season or is hoping that season is coming, I think if they can realize what you just said is like, oh yeah, I had a hard time in that transition, but not just because, I all of a sudden had this baby, but because, I was learning where to put my identity. Mm-hmm. Like I think so many young moms struggle with, is this off? Is my relationship with my husband off? Is my relationship with my new baby off? And it's like, no, at your core, it probably is like a question of, well, who am I? Mm-hmm. And who is God calling me to be? And I think even how you just shared that, whether or not the listener heard it and connected it, that's what I heard is like, yeah, like that really is the key to health and to Christ likeness and kind of every way really is making sure your identity is first and foremost secured in Jesus. And then the other thing you said that I thought was already super impactful is you said, and I'm still learning. Like it's an ongoing thing. It's not like you mastered it right when Rhodes was born. You're like, okay, I have this kiddo. He's 6 months old. I've figured it out. I'm thriving as a mom. Like all is good. It's like, no, you made the comment, and I'm still learning and I'm still giving those things up and taking those things to the Lord. And you said it's an ongoing thing. Yeah. And I think so often we're so tempted to, I think the enemy tells us this a lot of like, oh, you still struggle with that same thing? You still have that same kind of prickly doubt? That's a you problem, And I think as believers, especially, if you attend church regularly and you're involved and you're in a home group and you're doing all these things, you're like, I should know better by now, right? But I think the key to a healthy and loving relationship with Jesus that then helps you have healthy and loving relationships with other people is knowing, man, I'm always a work in progress and that's okay. Like that is by design. Yeah. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like too, just life brings different challenges, different experiences, different seasons. And there are a lot, at least for me, I know when I was working, I think a lot of validation came from that career and how I was as a professional and feedback from patients and feedback from employers.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people knew me because I was married to Drew. So there was an identity as Drew's wife. And now there's this identity as Rhodes' mom or Ella's mom or Grayson's mom. And I sometimes think we can put, even for my kids, I'll say, like unfair expectations on them to be a certain way or act a certain way or do a certain thing.
Yeah.
And when they don't fulfill that
Yeah.
to then put blame on myself and to question
Yeah.
myself as a mom, when in reality, they are individuals. They are little sinners just like I am, and they need Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for them to learn and to grow, and for me to step into that role that I have as their mom and pointing them to Jesus and showing them their need for Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I think, those little places can creep in all over with how we're seeking validation from all of these things that we shouldn't be seeking it from. So,
Yeah. I think that's so wise. I think too, what I'm hearing in that, and tell me what you think about this. I hear you saying like, it's really about perspective at the end of the day, right? It's like, people perceive me as Drew's wife, Rhodes' mom, and I have to remind myself, and maybe even, not to put words in your mouth, maybe do life with people that will also remind you, hey, Emily, first and foremost, you belong to Jesus, right? And how you interact in your role as a wife, as a mom, as a neighbor, as a friend is from that place of, because Jesus has called me to X, this is how I'm going to navigate these roles.
Right.
And it's perspective. Like, I love what you said. I really admired this so much when we talked off mic before, and even how you just articulated it now, this idea of, I don't have full total control over my kids or even over my husband. They're going to act and react and make decisions. And especially your kids are so young and so formidable, and they're learning and being nurtured. And you're like, they're sinners. I can't expect my toddler or my elementary age kiddo to get it right all the time, right? I can't expect my grown spouse to get it right all the time. And I think I hear you say so much of that is kind of you and the Lord internally shifting your perspective of, this is my role as a wife. This is my role as a mom, is to step into these spaces and actually share the gospel and share grace, not just in your words, but even how you interact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm striving to pursue that every day and placing my value and my identity again in who I am as the Lord's, then it's easier to kind of shift that focus to, okay, so I am secure in Him and who He's called me to be. Yeah. So every day we face the day to live out what He's called us to do, and that is ultimately to bring Him glory. Yeah. And then going back to the whole affirmation thing, even in my career and everything else, like it's not that I'm called to parent my kids, to pursue them and to love them so that I get their affirmation. It's to bring the Lord glory ultimately and to lead them to Him so that they can grow and serve Him and to fulfill His purpose for their lives.
Like the affirmation and validation from people, whether it's a stranger or a client or a patient at work or a spouse, a kid, a roommate, a friend, I feel like so often we do, without realizing it, we make their affirmation or their approval or their appreciation the goal. And it can't be. Ultimately, it has to be treated like a sweet bonus. Like, you can't go into it expecting it. Like, I think relationships get really sticky when it's like, well, they didn't affirm or validate me the way that I think they could or should or would have, right? Can you, I'm a really big, like, get into the weeds practical thinker, because it just helps me learn and like evaluate my own life. When you talk about, I was seeking validation, or I see that creep up sometimes, that I'm seeking validation from these different relationships. Do you have like a practical example of like a time when you've done that and you've kind of caught yourself and you've been like, oh, yep, that was me seeking validation?
Maybe not a specific instance, but I know, so the area that I serve within the church is the worship ministry alongside Drew. And I've grown up, my whole life. My dad was in worship ministry. So I've always grown up singing in the church. And it can be tempting at times to seek validation from people in the congregation, or, did I sound okay on this song? Or did I botch it completely? And ultimately, as a worship leader within the ministry, our job is to lead others to the feet of Jesus. My goal is to not sing pretty so that the men and women in the room can praise me for it. Right. It's ultimately to lead them to a place of worship when they're in our worship rooms on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
And I think seeking validation, that seems like a really kind of black and white practical way to set an example for that, is that
totally.
my role as a worship leader, as a member of the worship team, is not, to seek validation from members, but to seek validation in who God has called me to be as a worship leader and how I fulfill that role.
Yeah. I think too, something about validation that I think can get tricky that I just want to address before we move on to the next part of our conversation is, I think anytime I'm looking for a relationship to validate me, it could be marked by validation and it still won't be enough, because I think I'm designed to glorify the Lord, right? And so when I'm trying to replace his glory with mine, my soul's not going to be satisfied in that. And then I think I put an unnecessary strain on the relationships in my life when I'm looking for them to validate me. And I think that leads to all sorts of chaos, honestly. So I think that's such a wise and important way to think through it, of nope, my goal, my job is to bring honor and glory to the Lord, to let everything I do and say and am a part of be worshipful to him, and go throughout my day. Right. And then validation really is just a sweet bonus. We're like, oh,
sure.
Praise God that affected someone positively.
Sure. Yeah.
Whether that is as a mom or as a worship leader or, just as a stranger.
Yeah.
So that makes a ton of sense. I love that. Something I wanted to ask you, because you talked about, because this might feel like a very niche question, but I'm hoping it'll kind of bless people listening to this. When you talked about, we were married for several years and I was working full time and was enjoying it, was good at it, really liked it. And then I became a stay-at-home mom. That was part of the plan though, right?
Yeah. For Drew and me, it was always part of the plan. We knew from early on. So Drew, in the early years of our marriage, was a seminary student. And only working part-time. And so I was working full-time and we were kind of in the grind of that. And when we decided we were ready to start our family, we knew that day was coming. And the goal was kind of to get him to a place where he was able to work and provide. And because that was kind of me for a few years, just to get us through that season.
Yeah.
So I always knew it was coming. I was fully on board with it. It was something that we always were in agreement on, but I just don't think I anticipated all that would come with that. In that shift. My kids, we want them to learn to say please and thank you, of course, but
sure.
In big picture, it's kind of a thankless role with the kids,
totally. Yeah.
And so I just kind of started to struggle with feeling a little lost and lonely. And, my parents were out of town at the time, living out of town, and Drew's parents were and still are living out of town. And so there was a lot of that. They would come in for kind of short stints of visits and help. But a lot of that season was me kind of figuring a lot of things out by myself and just feeling really lonely.
Is there anything in that season that you look back now and you're like, oh, I wish I would have known to do this different, or I wish I would have known to ask for help in this way?
I think I wish that I had maybe remembered to call on help and to pursue relationships with friends of my own. I think I kind of got bogged down with this baby, this new life that was entrusted to us. And he became kind of all-consuming, and everything was, based on his needs, his schedule. I was a little bit more nervous to get out and go do anything. And I think in hindsight, I wish that I had put more value on just my own friendships and letting other friends kind of come alongside me and support me in that way.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one that stands out, I think. Maybe I wouldn't have struggled with the loneliness and the, because Drew was working and he was home when he could be, but there was a lot of back and forth, and maybe that would have helped.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I potentially. And the reason I set that question up is because something I found striking that I learned a lot from you and how you articulated it to me when we spoke the first time about it was, being a stay-at-home mom was the plan. And even though things in so many ways went according to plan, right? Like the finances came together, the schedule worked out, you have your baby, and it's going to plan, and you still found yourself lonely, isolated, overwhelmed. And the only reason I set that question up was because I wanted the listener to hear us talk about, yeah, things can go according to plan, and you can do everything in your power to steward it well, to have a plan. And by God's grace, like that the Lord afforded you that ability, right? And that's not even an ability that a lot of people have, but God in his grace and in his sovereignty over your family, that's what he designed for y'all to be able to do. And even though things went, quote unquote, to plan, it was still
hard.
It still kind of knocked you on your butt, right?
Yeah.
And I think a trap that women, especially in the church, can fall into is, well, her plan worked. Like, why isn't mine working? Or, oh, I did it right. Like, I did it. All my ducks are in a row. Why do I feel lonely? Why do I feel isolated? Why does the Lord feel far away?
Yeah.
And I think I just want women that hear this podcast to hear us say, like, yeah, things can go according to your plan, and life on this side of heaven is still hard and still messy and still costly, and you're not going to know all the answers or do anything perfectly.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just permission giving to just say, hey, raise your hand and say, hey, I'm scared to death. This did not go well.
And I think a lot of, some of my friends, like we all kind of started having babies at the same time, and we were feeling that. But for a while, I don't feel like we were really talking about it.
Yeah.
Everyone felt like we had to have it all together a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can struggle with that in a lot of ways, but just really recognizing that it's okay to go, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not okay.
well.
This is hard.
Yes.
I did not feel prepared for this, and I did not know until now we're in the deep end. And but also just recognizing that it's okay. Like you said, we're going to face those hard things. We're going to walk through those challenges, but Jesus meets us there.
Yes.
We just have to take the time to recognize that he's in it, and to call on him, and to just, recognize that even when we don't have it all together, he does. And it's okay that we don't, because we have him.
Yeah.
And I think that got a little bit better as we continued to have kids, and we weren't so in the brand new first time baby.
Totally.
We were totally clueless.
Yeah.
We still, we learn things every day. Parenting is not perfect.
Yeah.
But I think we try to do better about just being open with friends who can support and who can kind of come alongside us in that way, but also just remembering that it's okay. It's okay that things can be hard, and that we're learning. There's grace for that every day, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah. And I think wisdom, I tell people, all wisdom really is, if you want to boil it down, is applied knowledge, right? And I think true wisdom comes from the Lord, so i.e. doing things his way, right? And wisdom is applied knowledge. It's like, I'm in my early 30s, and now work and just functioning, this might sound silly, just as an adult and taking care of my life just takes up so much less rent in my brain than it did when I was in my early 20s.
Sure.
Because I was doing it all for the first time, or was scared, oh no, if I don't do X perfect, my whole life's going to go off the rails. And it's like, it won't.
Yeah.
It won't.
Yeah.
Like, it won't. By God's grace, it will not.
You find your rhythm.
Yeah, you find your rhythm.
Things get smoother.
You learn how to ask for help. Like, sometimes you just learn the hard way. You're like, oh, I botched that. Okay, I'll do it different next time.
Yeah, there's plenty of that for sure.
Yeah, and there's that old adage with kids where it's like, when you have your firstborn, it's like you don't leave the house for 6 months, and you deeply wash everything that might even come in the same room as the baby, and then you have your second kid, and it's like you pick the pacifier up off the ground at the playground and pop it right back in, right? And it's like, that's such a funny, but
things
like
get a little more laid back.
Of like, that's how life progresses. Like, I think it is. It's just applied knowledge.
Sure.
And I think if we in the church could get better at just being honest, of raising our hand and being like, hey, I'm not doing so hot.
Yep.
Like, I have a question. And loving each other in a way that invites that and even presses when it's not seen, I think would make the church look way more set apart in the world around us.
Yeah.
But that was a bonus thought.
Yeah, that's good.
But I appreciate you letting me go on that rabbit trail with you. Okay, something we've also talked a lot about that I think will help kind of add some like practical things. And I think too, like, I think another lie we believe is like, oh, to do life with someone or to learn from them, my life has to be pretty synonymous to theirs. But I think something that I have been thinking a lot about since we started chatting is I love how you talk about serving in the church and serving in a way that blesses your kids. And I think even as a person who's not in that season of life, even hearing you talk about that gave me so much perspective of like, what does my service in church look like? And like, what could it look like? And I just loved how you articulated some of those things. So can you tell me about like what that learning curve has looked like for your family as, you know, started out serving it? And you've mentioned it a couple of times already, right? Like Drew is one of our worship pastors here at Christ Chapel. So he's serving and leading every Sunday.
Week he's here.
Every Sunday, right?
And he has to be.
Yeah.
And so for us to be flexible for our family, it kind of falls to me, at least in that regard. So I know things can look a little different for us just because Drew is on staff.
Sure.
But yeah, I serve alongside him in our worship ministry at the West Campus, and we love getting to do that together.
Yeah.
We've done that in some capacity for a lot of years. So it's really special for our family and for us. But our kids have always known mom and dad serving.
Yeah.
It's just always been a part of our life and our family, and we feel like that's important. It's important for us to be involved, but it's also important for us to model that for our kids because we want them to grow up in a home where they see the importance of, you know, as believers, as members of the body, we serve in the church.
Yeah.
But because Drew's on staff, we don't really get to take shifts. And so if Drew and I are serving together, it means that mom and dad are both away.
Yeah.
So Sunday mornings are kind of a production for me, for me to get to be there, to do it. So we have a sweet babysitter, who comes and she, you know, we rehearse at 7 a.m. So she's there at 6:30.
Oh my gosh.
And so sometimes
shout out to her.
I'm telling you. And every year it's like we have these sitters that we kind of latch onto and then they move away to college.
You were in the family.
We get a new sitter that comes, we latch on to her, you know. So anyway, awesome. We're so thankful and our kids love them. But so she comes at 6:30 and a lot of times we have 3 early risers in our house. Usually I see all 3 of them before I leave.
That's awesome.
Drew sometimes yes, sometimes no, because he leaves even earlier to get there. But yeah, she comes and she does breakfast with the kids and gets them dressed, and we have to swap vehicles so she can have the car to get the kids to church.
Yeah.
And
she's like rolling up in the van.
Yeah, she's bringing the minivan, and
That's awesome.
And I'm bringing hers. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, but they all come to church, and we get to see them briefly, and then she takes them back home until we can get there after the second service. And several months ago, you know, we introduced a third service.
Yep.
And so that became even more time away from them. And we just started to notice, this was kind of early last year, they were just struggling. We were seeing some things that we recognized as probably a result of just I will say, usually I'm kind of on a rotation, but for a season, I was serving pretty regularly.
Like
and so it was just every week. Yeah. Mom and dad were both gone the majority of the day. And so we made the decision for me to step out for a little while. And we didn't really have a start and stop date. We were just going to kind of feel it out. But we just wanted our Sunday family dynamic to shift. And we felt like in order to do that and to put them first in that way, Mom stepped out and took a break for a while. And so I'm just now kind of starting to plug back in, but we're being very careful with the frequency of that involvement and what that looks like. We're kind of taking baby steps just out of consideration for them. But we want them to know the importance of serving in the church, as I said, but we also want them to know that they are a priority to us and that we value our family and what's best for them. Yeah. And so we're really open with them about it. The older they get, the easier it is for us to kind of talk about it.
Yeah. It's like more conversational.
Yeah, more conversational, which is really, it's been neat to kind of, especially with Rhodes, he's able to kind of voice his interpretation of things and kind of how he's comprehending that. So we just kind of take it a week at a time, a day at a time. Yeah. And try our best to be, of course, Drew and I open in communication with each other about it, but also just trying to find the balance and the sweet spot. And sometimes it just changes depending on kind of
Yeah.
what else is going on in our world. And we try to be sensitive to that. But
Yeah.
we know it's important for us to be serving. We know that it's important for our kids to see that. And we want them to grow up and do the same. So we just take it a day at a time.
That's cool. Okay. I feel like the pattern in this conversation has been you say something really wise or really valuable. And then I'm like, okay, let's unpack that. I'm like, unpack it for me because I'm a slower learner. A couple of things you said there that I loved and kind of latched onto that I want to ask you a little more about is one, even in hearing you articulate, and you did it, listener, this is not a video podcast, this is audio only. But while Emily was chatting about that, her eyes lit up and she smiled when she talked about, the babysitter comes and we see the kids and we tell them bye and we go serve. And then she's there all day and then we come home and see them. And I was like, wait a second, you have 3 kiddos. You have a gal come to your home, you set her up, make sure she's good, you swap vehicles with her, which is hilarious to me.
know.
You just like rolling up in a teenage girl's vehicle on Sunday morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, it cost you so much energy and thoughtfulness and inconvenience to serve. And that is, forgive me, that's mind-blowing to me. And maybe it shouldn't be, right? Like I do think that's the kind of service we're called to is a costly one. And I think so often I'm tempted to make sure my service is convenient and make sure it just kind of fits in that one time block that I've got set aside for it. And if it doesn't, I'm like, well, I set aside the time block, and I just, in your humility and in your joy as you were sharing that, I was like, oh my gosh, they at a great cost to do this thing, serve. And it seems genuinely and earnestly with joy. And I think that was so life-giving to witness. Listener, I'm sorry you couldn't sit in the room with us. That was so life-giving to witness is like, like our service cost us dearly and we do it joyfully. And I think I would just invite anyone listening to this to ask yourself, man, am I serving? Is it costly? And does it bring me joy? And I think those are good reflective questions to ask. And not saying y'all do it perfect or that you set the standard anyway. You're just sharing honestly of like, this is what God has called our family to. And this is what we do to make it happen. And then in that, the other thing I love that you said is you're like, and when we realized that costly service started to have an impact on our kids that we took notice of, we changed, like we shifted. And I think that sounds so simple, but I think that's actually also really wise and really profound because I think, especially in like the Big C church, the church kind of has a negative stigma for like, if you commit, it's kind of just like this like kind of forever commitment, right? Like we never DTR, right? It's always like, well, I will serve forever. I will serve in this role at this time until I go to glory. And it's like, no, like your church is a body. Like its needs changes, your needs change. And we should live in community with one another in a way where it's like those conversations are life-giving and not intimidating to have of like, and you did it through the lens of, okay, we are called first to our nuclear family that God has built and given us. And then we are called with that context into our church family and what that service looks like. So it sounds like that's the lens through which y'all kind of make decisions and discern, okay, what would God have us prioritize?
Sure.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That really blew me away. That took me back. I'm getting a little teary. That's good stuff. Okay. I've kept you for so long. I feel like time flies when you're having fun.
It does.
And so as we get ready to wrap up, there's one last thing I want to ask you about that we've talked about before.
Sure.
And then if you just have any other lasting wisdom, which I'm sure it's sitting there, that you just have to get off your chest, I would love to give you the space. But something else that I would love to hear you share about is when we chatted, something you and I kind of, I think, shared in common and realized we have in common is the Lord has taught us both as young women a ton about just our health, right? And part of being a good steward of what God has asked us to care for, whether that is our job, our families, the people in our lives, doing our day-to-day well, is finding a way to unto the Lord, and that's the key, right? It's not self-care for self-care's sake, but it's like, unto the Lord, I want to steward my well-being so that I can be the best version of these things God has called me to.
Yeah.
And I think the Lord, it sounds like, has taught you a ton about almost being permission giving with yourself, I think is a good way to say it in what those rhythms look like. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's easy as a mom to kind of put yourself on the back burner. Everyone's needs, everyone else's needs come first.
Sure.
And for me, each of my pregnancies, and I'll hit on this quickly because I know it could be probably a whole other podcast in itself.
Sure.
But each of my pregnancies were harder on me physically, mentally. And by the time I had my third, I struggled through postpartum depression that kind of progressed to something even deeper than that. And it took us a long time to see it because I got really good at slapping on the smile.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. We're living life. We're doing great. But in the privacy of my home.
Yeah.
And really in front of my kids, I feel like I even kind of, I hid it from Drew, honestly, for a long time. And thankfully, over time, there were things he started to notice, and we kind of started talking more about where I was. And with the help of my doctor and a season of some medication, and we kind of worked through that, and I was able to wean off of that, and everything is much better, in a better, healthier place now. But through that, I learned that I can't always completely put myself to the back burner.
Right.
And for me, one of the ways that I serve my family, I think I kind of interpret that as like they come first. They are a priority.
Right.
Mom's needs can wait.
Sure.
But I think we mentioned on this like perspective shift earlier.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
And there can be time and space for all of it. And so I made a priority to just start getting up earlier to have time for myself. And I mentioned that, I have 3 early risers. So I used to get really frustrated when the time that I would wake up early for was not really to myself after all. But again, perspective shift. Instead of getting frustrated by that, I shifted. And now I can kind of recognize that whether I'm up and in the garage to move my body early in the morning, if they interrupt that some, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm not looking at it anymore as like they're taking that time away from me. I can look at it as they're growing up and seeing mom take care of herself.
Yeah.
And prioritize that. Or if they are up and I'm trying to spend time in scripture and I'm getting interrupted or questioned, like that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, at least not now,
Right.
completely quiet, completely uninterrupted, completely private. They are seeing mom spend time with the Lord.
Yeah.
And they ask questions, and I get to talk to them about why I'm doing that. And now sometimes they'll snuggle up next to me, or, kids ministry at church sends home every week. Rhodes and Ella come home with like little bookmarks that they can check off their Bible reading. And they're now starting to take more ownership of, I read my Bible too, Mom, and it's not always like, have you read your Bible today? But like they're seeing that like this is something that we do.
Yeah.
And it's not always just something like to check off the list, you know, but something to prioritize because it's important.
Yeah.
And so I hope I'm answering.
No, you totally are.
Yeah.
I think that is such a practical, and that's what we had talked about before too, is just, and by the way, thank you so much for sharing so honestly about such a hard and
it's another one of those
season.
things that I think probably a lot more people than we realize struggle with and don't feel the freedom to talk about it. I know I didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember that season being really, it was just hard, and I felt so defeated, and I felt like I had failed, I guess, really. But that's not the case,
Right.
and we have medicine and we have things that can help, and that's what we did, and it helped. And then we, worked our way out of that, and things are better. So I'm grateful for it, but I do think it's something that probably doesn't get talked about a whole lot.
Yeah.
But something that's probably a really real challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think you're right. I so appreciate you. I've been so encouraged by you every time we've sat down to chat. So I'm glad that the mic was on this time. But thank you so much. I too, as we close, To go back to what you were just sharing, I think that is so beautifully simple, right? And you're not saying, hey, this is the right way and this is how you should do it. You're saying, this is how God has shown and taught me that I can do these things in my life that have been healthy and helpful and honoring, right? They've been healthy for me. They've been helpful to my family, and they've been honoring to the Lord. And I think if we can put that lens on decisions we make and rhythms we set up, I think that's a great thing to put into practice. And so I love how practical and simple you made it. And I love how you articulate too. And now that's what it looks like. And I think what you're not saying, but what's being said there is it wasn't always this way and it won't always be this way. And just holding it, I imagine too, as a mom, it's easy to kind of like close your fist around like, well, this is what works. And so we're just going to keep doing this. But to say, okay, I'm going to open-handedly, I'm going to open-handedly just say, okay, God, what does obedience look like to you right now? And I'm going to do those things.
Yeah.
And I just hope that anyone that listens to this is encouraged by that. It doesn't have to look exactly like what we've talked about today.
Sure.
But I think our heart in having this conversation was just, God will meet you where you're at and show you what to do. And you just have to be willing to say, okay, God, I'm open-handed.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Offer his glory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I hope you did too.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
We might have to have you back before it's all said and done. Okay. Thanks,
Let's
Emily.
do it. Yeah. Thanks.
Brooke, that was so fun and so encouraging to get to know Emily through your conversation with her. It was really incredible that she really did, like, she shared so vulnerably about those times that were both difficult but also life-giving. And it was such a moment of like being spurred on to do good and faithful things with the Lord. And so I was just really encouraged by her wisdom.
Good. That's so cool to hear. And I feel the same way. I think I say this like in the episode, like in the recording, there was more than once where I was just so blessed by just what she was saying. And it was simple, but it really was in a lot of ways, I think, profound and really practical. But I would love to know, like, just as a listener, what were some of maybe your biggest takeaway or something that you're going to leave this episode thinking about?
Yeah. Something that is just like resonating through my brain. I love that she talked about how some things, they go to plan and they're still really difficult and they're still really hard. And the important thing in those moments is not only like digging in deep with the Lord, but also like run into your community and being okay with saying, hey, things are not great.
Yeah.
I'm not well. And really trusting the community that the Lord's given you to step in there. But one of the things that I'm still like wrestling through, y'all talked about service and service is costly.
Yeah.
And it is not convenient at times. And man, I've been there. Like I have walked in obedience and walked in areas of service when it has been costly. It's been real uncomfortable. But it really has given the Lord the opportunity to peel away some of the things that I was really clinging to for comfort that were not necessary and were not the thing that I was meant to find comfort in. And so, something that I will walk away from this episode with is really asking the Lord, like, hey, I may not be serving. One of the ways that we serve is we get to serve an avenue, and we're not in a season where we're doing that right now. But really asking the Lord, hey, where do you want me to give costly service right now?
Yeah.
If it's not in this one area, like, where do you want me stepping in? Like, we're serving our family, we're serving our neighbors, we're in our small group, and those are great and wonderful things. But if it's not in a way that is life-giving and really giving me moments to trust the Lord and have to rely on Him for the joy that comes at the end of those things, am I really learning what I need to be learning? And am I really taking part in that obedience that He's called me to? I don't want to miss it. Like, I genuinely don't want to miss it. She shared about serving in such a way that was it truly was joyful. And so I don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so grateful for Emily and for what God, most importantly, has done in her and through her and what He's continuing to do, and was so just encouraged by by what she shared. And listener, I hope you had the same experience, and I hope you join us for the next episode of Encouraged and Equipped.
Thanks for listening. For more episodes, be sure to follow Encouraged and Equipped.